Welcome to the May 6th JLN Zones production user call. We have Dave, Daniel, Mark, and myself, Michael, so far. And heads up, the FreeBSD community survey is open a few more days until May 7th. I clicked the link and was not able to load it, but I welcome you to try that. And there has been some OCI news. And Dave, I'm not here to steal any thunder, but I will set the stage by sharing this. Oh, I am having perhaps even DNS issues. So no, I won't be sharing that. Dave, what's going on? Tell us more about that.
That one I need to look at to see what's happening here.
I'll check down detector.
Why can't I get to that link, Michael? I must be doing something wrong.
Oh, I can't either, and I can't get the survey link. So I'm checking down detector for outages.
There we go. I got the docs. Here we go. This one here. Yeah. So the long story short here, the OCI Open Container Initiative platform is the sort of the industry standard based off the Docker spec, and what we have been working on as a working group is getting FreeBSD supported both as a container runtime and as a platform to run containers on. And one part of that is this runtime spec. If you can think of it this way, when you run a container now on FreeBSD, it's still just a jail. So we're still using all the jail syscalls, and everything else inside it works just like any other jail, but it has the added functionality of understanding how to fetch the compressed and deduplicated image layers from a registry. And then once those have been fetched, they're unpacked and then mounted with either ZFS file system or UFS, and a jail is then deployed on top of those. And while it's happening, we can ask the OCI runtime questions like, what's the network of this jail, this container? Is it running? All those types of things. And so this real massive world of tooling comes along with this as well. So the core functionality is super straightforward. Run a jail from a Go program, but the work to make it all happen all around it is huge. And this specification here is the culmination of a couple of years of discussion and work and code, almost all entirely from Doug Rabson, with a little sidecar help from me occasionally, and getting this into the official runtime spec for open containers. That's really significant for us, not only from the point of view of we can now say we have containers, but also that it means changes and testing and so forth. I can share my end, Michael, if you want.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you do have a choice link, because I don't know what the
I have it.
West
Yeah.
is.
What do we want to do here? There we go here.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is about merging into the spec. Once it's done, that means we're also in the loop for compatibility changes and other types of considerations. So if something gets added to the Linux side of it or the Windows part of it, then we can also be sure that we will get our own opportunity to review and contribute features as well, which is great. Yeah, so it's like joining the IETF for your project from FreeBSD, or running the ICU standard committee or something like that.
So if one were to sit down and try it, do they just spin up a FreeBSD machine and install a package, or what? How do they try?
Yeah, so from our side here, this particular PR is the official paperwork, but the actual production part of it is more or less ready now. And if we assume that the demo gods aren't going to hate me, I can probably just show you here. Let me find. So last Friday, I pushed the 3 flavors of images that we have. If this is not big enough, let me know. We've got a runtime, the dynamic, and the static. So static is the smallest, basically contains password file, TLS certificates, and that's about it. Probably a couple of other files I've forgotten. Dynamic adds, libc, and a bunch of other dynamic library support. So the bottom one, you could run some static binary. The next layer up, you can run something like Nginx will work in this. And the final layer, runtime, brings the whole kitchen sink. So in here we have enough to bootstrap package. We don't have package itself, but we have the package binary that allows you to bootstrap it, and all of the other things, cron, RC, all of those things that we're used to. Your standard sort of FreeBSD jail environment would be in that. So if you're porting existing software that you use on FreeBSD jails today and you want to port it into a container runtime, you would probably go for this latter one to start with. So these are live on Docker Hub now, which means you can just sort of fetch them. And the GitHub ones, where are they? FreeBSD, I don't see it here. They are there, but I'm waiting for Git admin to push the magic button to make these public for us. The same binary. So how do we use this? Here is one I prepared earlier. All containers, here's one. So let's just make this a little bigger. So
and drop it in the chat if it's appropriate.
I will do, yeah. This is Will's example, it's not mine. He came and said it's not working for me, what's wrong? So we're assuming that my computer, which is in a fairly custom state all the time, will just work with this. Oh, we need a window here, don't we? So do we see that or not, or is it gone?
From docker.io, FreeBSD.
I have to reshare because I don't have enough windows.
Okay, cool.
There we go. Good. So we should see this now.
It's tiny, but we see it.
Okay, container. So the directory name isn't important, but a container file. Oops, not enough text there. Here we go. Let's just copy that. We can sort of explain what's going on here. So let's paste that in. So anyone who's used Docker, this looks very familiar, this pseudo reproducible set of instructions. And the outcome of this non-reproducible process is a bunch of tables with specific layers in them. So here we say, here we're going to pull it from the Docker registry. We want the runtime package, so all the bells and whistles. And we want to pick it from 14.2. Now, this is architecture independent. You can run this on ARM64 or AMD64 without any issues. And assuming I get all the bits ready for the official release, that would actually work for RISC-V and any other FreeBSD jail supported platform, which is pretty awesome.
That's nice.
Now, this image is basically empty, and we want to install a Python package because we want to have a web server. Yep. So we've asked here to do the package bootstrap stuff, and then it needs to update its own list of packages. So this is package base, what that we're using here, package base. And then we need OpenSSL because we forgot it in the 14.2 runtime release. It works in 14.3, but we need to add it in. Without OpenSSL, the next phase of package gets very confused when it tries to calculate a bunch of things or fetch other packages. And then we upgrade all the packages. We upgrade all the package registries and then install Python like we know and love. And for the sake of seeing what's going on, we're just going to remove all the queues so we see what happens. Actually, let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make it snap. So snap is the, let's use the example I already have tested. And then finally at the end, it sets an entry point for the container. So this is just building it. And you can imagine you've got a file system. We unpack the runtime, then we install the FreeBSD bootstrap. Now we have a fully functioning package. Update packages, install the package base OpenSSL, upgrade everything again, and then finally install Python and run the server. So let's just get ourselves another window here. Make it ridiculously big. Go and find my notes again. Podman on FreeBSD runs entirely as root, and I'm hoping one day we will fix that. But that's just because that's the way jails are. So if we do this here, I've got to get to the right directory. Temp container, I think. Good. Yep. And this is using one of the Podman suites of tools. So Podman is the tool that both creates jails, containers, allows us to fetch and install packages, and also run them as well. It's a multifaceted tool. We need this little magical flag here, no hosts. By default on Linux, your etc hosts file will be mounted into the container, and it is used so Podman can do magical things like find other containers on your local system, like a fake DNS. Yep. But when we upgrade package base, the hosts file changed slightly between 14.2 and whatever the next version is, and then the container is broken after that because it wants to overwrite etc hosts, but it can't do that because it's actually a mounted file system, and then everything fails. And the rest of it is just user TTY, and this is the container name we want, the label or the tag, and then just use the container file in this directory. So this example isn't very fancy. We're not doing anything like importing other files from this file system, but we could do that. And let's just make it bigger here so we can see what it's doing. So it's just telling us what the steps are doing. It's fetched the runtime, which is super quick because I probably already had it. Where do we get to? Now it's bootstrapping package, and off it goes here. It's doing the usual stuff, fetching OpenSSL. And you'll notice here that this is 14.2 P3 in this container. So the OpenSSL we've added doesn't match the runtime that we've deployed. Currently in the project, we're not building patch releases of each. We're not building patched versions of FreeBSD. We're just doing the major releases. So after this here, we're going to have to upgrade all of our packages as well, which we'll do in the next step. So down here, step 5, package upgrade everything. It's got 19 things to upgrade. And here you can see, if any of you haven't seen package base before, it's just like package, except FreeBSD is prepended to it. So here you can see like the old trusty fetch, our internal curl, libarchive, which is what we use for doing unzip and tar and stuff like that. libsqlite, because we have that embedded in FreeBSD, I think primarily for package, but maybe for other stuff. And it's fetching all of these. So at this point here, once this phase is finished, our container will be at version 14.2 P3. So off it goes. It's fetching those. It's probably done that by now, even on my scabby internet. And then finally, we're saying, please install me the Python. Bring me the snake. And it's just package that you know and love. Off it goes and does those things here. And somewhere down here, here we go. Contained a localhost test, and it's added the entry point. So if I go podman ls, what is it? Image lsj. You can see I've got quite a lot of ones here. Here is the one we just made, and it's got a tag here, and that tag is a, I'll get it wrong, it's a hash of the metadata of one of the bits. I forget exactly which piece, but we can see it there as well. So if you're a really untrusting person and you want to pull a container from a registry, you would go to the official FreeBSD release engineering email that gets signed with a PGP key. It will have the image tag here, and you would request precisely the image, and then you know that you're getting the same bits that Colin and I have labored over for the last few months. But most people will probably just, going right up to the top here, YOLO it using that under the reasonable assumption that this is probably the right thing. So off we go. We've made an image, and now we want to run it. What do I want to do here? Just got to go back to my notes. Here we go. Podman run it. I'm still a bit of a neophyte with half of this stuff, so still working on it. Okay. So Podman does the same thing here. We go run. IT is interactive and a TTY, and RM says clean up the container afterwards. The general tool suite is a mishmash of BSD style options and GNU style options, which is a bit, it makes me feel uncomfortable. But off we go. And you can see it's instant. It didn't have to fetch anything or do anything. It's ready to go, and it probably took like 300 milliseconds to make a jail, or even less. So it's pretty fast. And I don't know if I've got anything else running on port 80. Okay, it's a VNet jail, isn't it? So let's just see if we can talk to it. I may not have exposed this to the network, so I don't know if we can get to it, but let's try. I don't think that's going to work. No, I probably need another option that I haven't yet figured out what it is to expose that locally, but that's the gist of it.
Cool.
And at the end of it, you can push this container up into a registry. Setting your own registry is pretty easy, or we can use a GitHub one, or key.io or docker.io, whatever. And then the next time you want to run this on a different machine, you just pull it down, and this same command here will do the fetch for you. It'll realize it doesn't have this. It'll look it up at a registry, find the tag, and pull it down and run it for you. And that really there is the attraction of containers. So if you think how long it would take you to take an arbitrary package and create a jail template to run it in, it will be very specific to your environment, and it'll be a reasonable amount of work. But this sloppy process of just taking the packages that are around right now gives us a portable container that'll run on any FreeBSD system in a handful of seconds. And that's really the attraction. The scooping things up and then deploying them is much, much quicker. The downside is that the complexity of all of these things is much, much greater. It's there's a lot of stuff in here. Let's just run this again, and because it's a jails call, let's have a look here. We've got a jail. Here we go. So here's my other jails running, doing the usual things, and here's the one we created. We can see that it's got some sort of weird file system in here. Whoops. What have I done wrong here? There we go. And this looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? So this is the root of our file system, and from this point on, it's just jails. So we should be able to go dv. We can see our jail down the bottom here, and I need the libxo jls, and we're going to go down to the end. Where's our jail? Here it is. I'm missing the flag here to print out all the options. What have I done? Is that it? No. Here I am, caught live on camera. I can't remember the option. There's one to print out all of the jails fields. What I wanted is to show the VNet status of it. It's H. I think it's H. N, H, V. Maybe it's -H. Yeah, that's more like it.
Hey.
Great. So here's our jail 9. And what we're interested in here is somewhere around here, it will say VNet. Okay, so it's a VNet jail. It's not directly visible from the host. And I actually don't know yet with Podman how all of the jail stuff is running. You can see that some options aren't correctly set. So the OSREL date and OS release, these should be set by the jail runtime. If we go back and see some of my other jails here, you can see here's one. This is correctly set for 14.2 release here. But you can add other options that get propagated through to jails. And there's still a lot of work to do on documenting and figuring out how all of this works here. But somewhere here,
how are they using new as a status? Well, obviously new, but ZFS new doesn't ring a bell.
From my recollection, new just means you will create one of these, but I don't know what its definition is. Okay. Jail system, please figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically, if we want to use a VNet, go and make one for me.
Oh, so handle it for me. That makes sense. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look at the other jails, these ones aren't VNet, but you can see here host new as well. Oh, this is the jail 0 CI. Yep. Down here, there'll be another ZFS new one here somewhere. Where's ZFS? There it is. Same thing here again. But in my case, the networking is don't make a new one. It's use the host. But that's in a nutshell. This is trucking along. The containers there, and as you can see, I know about half of what I need to know to use these properly. Yeah. I'll de-share
thank you,
if I've.
Doug. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks.
And you do have a really nice segue there, unless someone has questions. Daniel, you still with us? You are our audience.
Yeah, that was great. I think this is definitely one for the the best of YouTube list for our calls. I think this will be something people want to reference a lot. That was a great demo. So with Podman, do we have? I mean, obviously, we'll want to tune the jail config and stuff like that. Is that all done through? I mean, how complex can we get? Obviously, the point is to provide some, stability and standardization to setting these up. But I don't know, can we also run Linux jails and use netgraph and do all kinds of funky stuff like that?
Yeah, so the short answer to all of that is yes. So the Linux jail stuff is, I think of it as it's a bit like a cool dog and pony show, but I'm not sure how much use it will be in practice. So the thing with the Linux ladder is it's got an incredible range of syscalls that just work, and then it's got some that doesn't. So I imagine, put myself in a hypothetical customer situation. I double down on FreeBSD, but then there's this one thing where we want to run this Linux container, and it's fine for the first year, and then the next version. I order of Mama, you. Where was I?
Linux Emulator is pretty cool, but the expectations need managing, maybe.
Right, like and the default package for Nginx in almost every single public Linux repo does not support the FreeBSD's Linux ABI. It's not that Nginx doesn't work. It's just Nginx needs to be compiled specifically to work in. So that means that almost all Docker packages that require Nginx don't work because Nginx is never compiled in a way that FreeBSD likes. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So my example here is you're running some Linux application and it works fine, and then the next release uses some syscall that we don't have on FreeBSD, and then your project breaks. And I'm not convinced that's a great outcome for people.
Right.
The other aspect, the container uses anything that wants systemd, then it expects to be PID1, and it won't be PID1 because FreeBSD doesn't do that. You can't have multiple PID1s on FreeBSD, at least not to my knowledge. So none of the systemd features, or many of the systemd features don't work. Yeah, it's definitely your mileage may vary type thing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
But Daniel, go ahead.
No, that's great. I mean, I agree that sort of wanting to do anything imaginable is not consistent with what OCI is going to give us anyway. So yeah, I mean, and I think in those edge cases, I think a VM is probably more sensible, and then jails can do everything else with this.
I'm just having a look. I don't know whose question this is about.
I have two questions. MD is me, and then I have the PID mapping. So you mentioned systemd. In these docs are Bjorn Zeeb's, I believe, review for jail PID mapping. So you could say, hey, no, this process that happens to be systemd is mapped to 0 within the jail, but might be 56,000 on the host, etc. So that
might fit. Yeah.
I will take a look here at Bjorn. And it was a pretty stale review, and inquiries didn't get very far, but this is kind of what we're discussing. That is probably worth revisiting. And my other question is, so you mentioned you just created a jail. Thank you. That's awesome. A container for us. So if you were to put that in a registry, what's the general expectation of you updating that as
So
like
the container world
as the author?
is very firmly, the container world is very firmly on the, we don't update stuff, we rebuild it. And so when you pull, if I just, did I link to my example? Do you want to click on my Michael, just so we have it handy in the share?
I'm having
Um,
network issues. You might need to share it. I
okay, no,
cannot, let me try it
it's
again,
in the,
but I can't get to GitHub.
yeah, no worries. That's fine. So in the container file, the very first line says from docker.io, FreeBSD, runtime 14.2.
Hmm.
So those things, generally, we should assume that they're immutable and they're not going to change. So if you want to have 14.2 P3, you'll need to do the upgrade commands yourself. It's possible. It's not only possible, it's pretty easy to stage that layer and then reuse that across other containers. But generally, the idea is you should be rebuilding your containers all the time, every few weeks or whatever, and then you're always going to have the latest security fixes, latest changes from FreeBSD packages. And that is a big discussion, has been a big discussion in the container world for best part of a decade on, is this a good idea or not? Every security firm I know of, when they go and do audits and companies that use Docker, come back with a huge list of vulnerabilities that haven't been patched because of this, because no one wants to touch the running thing. It's very easy. So you should rebuild containers frequently. Every time there's a set of patches you want, go and do it.
Interesting. And so does one in the future, 3 weeks from now, ask for FreeBSD 14.2 or and it'll be rebuilt for them with the latest and greatest patch level, or do they ask for 14 telepathically 14.2 P4, P8, whatever? I'm just trying to get my head around that expectation.
And just I had we did package upgrade, and that's how you would get your newer binaries, your upgraded patched FreeBSD or your upgraded and patched software. So you need to use package upgrade
after installation
for that.
Or
yeah,
if it's a fresh deployment, how do you keep it? How do you guarantee that a fresh new container is fresh?
So in the one the link I provided here, we did this package update repeatedly, package upgrade, package update.
Yep.
One to get just the FreeBSD base packages. That's the same thing as running FreeBSD update, if you like.
Okay.
And then the second phase was putting in the packages we want. So you'd have to rebuild each time, rebuild. But you can structure your build stuff in such a way that the first package update, package upgrade pass for all your containers is only done once, and the layer is kept. And then as you rebuild, the other ones on top will inherit that.
Okay, welcome late bloomers. I mean late arrivals. We've got Alexander and Craytonian. We've just had a lovely demo from Dave about the new OCI runtime exposed through Podman, and we're discussing sort of expectations here. I will add you to the agenda, and in the course of this, I'm trying to find Bjorn Zeeb's jail PID virtualization, I believe, is the term he used in the review. So I'll try to find that, but it was the idea that you can, on the fly, make a PID 0 work for System D.
I posted in the chat there because I had it bookmarked.
You found it. Good man. Thank you.
Yeah, Alex, you're right. We are late bloomers here with containers. Look at our new shiny 10-year-old containers. On the other hand, we've had jails for like 25 years.
Exactly. So,
I was actually just joking about, I kind of suck.
It's definitely something I don't know if you caught my demo, but there's some bits I have not yet figured out how to do. Doug's much further ahead on me than I am, but it's definitely something where if people have container experience on other platforms, it would be really great to have them try this and say, this is how I do X on Linux. How do we do that on FreeBSD? All of those questions, the more I get beforehand, before 14.3 goes out, the more of them will go out with information around that.
Step 1, use an overriding file system instead of ZFS. Step 2, go back in time to more primitive times. So yeah, here we go. Thank you for bringing that up. Would it be inaccurate to say that this will keep coming up and this might need some attention? That's from 2018. I'm sure it doesn't apply anymore. All the right people commented. There's DFR right there. March 2025. Oh, hello. With this approach, presence are not visible. Well, that's pretty timely. Thank you, Doug. Let me put that title in there for posterity and copy in that text. If my browser will let me change window. Dave, you have a question in chat. Could you take a peek at that?
Oh yeah, I saw that. So I think the thing we have to bear in mind is containers is jails as containers at runtime. There's no difference between these two things. The difference is in the tooling around it. So right now with jails, ZFS is really nicely integrated. It's very straightforward to use. The networking on FreeBSD is effectively separate, but matches all the stuff we have in jails. And for OCI containers, I imagine we will find rough edges there. So if you create your container, you should be able to specify what file systems you want, what extra mounts you need, what network you want. You can build your own network, or you can use the one that the container runtime provides for you. That stuff is more or less the same. I think the difference is we've not yet found a nice, tidy way to have the container runtime auto mount child ZFS data sets. And that's really the only thing I run into where I go, I don't know how to fix that yet. So the example is I'm running a database. Let's say it's Postgres, and I've got one data set that contains the database files themselves and a subsidiary ZFS container that has the indexes in them. So I want to have these two separate containers because I'm only going to back up the data set that has the main data files in it. I don't want to back up the views because they can be recreated in the case of a disaster with a bit of time. Okay. And what I want is when the container mounts, it should mount the data set and automatically mount all child data sets underneath it. And maybe this is easy. Maybe it's hard. I don't know how to do that yet. The way we do this, or the way I do this with jails today, is the mounting is handled by the kernel. Well, not by the kernel, but by the jail daemon when the jail starts up, and it's done prior to the jail starting up. When the jail is torn down, then the file systems are unmounted automatically. And in FreeBSD, the ZFS stuff just handles that transparently. And I'm pretty sure I can link to something that does that already. Let me have a look here. Templates. Yeah, so I'll just drop this in the call, but jail. Yeah, so the main reason for doing it this way is my general approach with jails is that I'm jailing stuff because I don't trust what's happening inside it. And a very good example is a web server or some sort of other application service exposed to the network. and the jail should have the bare minimum to do its job. So it shouldn't have root processes running. It shouldn't have the ability to mount file systems. It shouldn't have the ability to change its network. What's the point of jailing something if you leave all the keys to the kingdom sitting in the prison? Yeah.
Cool. Well, one, keep up the good work. Two, I hope this stays on the collective radar. It sounds like Doug's quick read of it has concerns, but that problem won't go away. Thank you for that unsippable jail template.
Yeah, so Cretona, the question really is on the container in OCI containers, I don't know how to have multiple ZFS data sets mounted for me by the container runtime. And I am on Discord. I'm surprisingly DCH on Discord. Who would have thought? So if you want to pass me, if you want to link me up with someone else, that'd be great.
Cool. How about we touch on some related topics and just circle back as appropriate. So to that end, thank you for using an example container with package base. Note that the announcement's gone out that the 15 images, I believe, now ship with package base in the installer. Thank you, Ed Mast and company, for pursuing that. Thank you, Dave, for pointing out that OpenSSL may have been inadvertently skipped in the 14.2 build, was it? And I bring this up, one, for the heads up. Two, I want to give it a try. Three, Chuck made an observation about, I believe it was inventory in there, such that he wanted to identify where something came from, which I identified long ago as a ridiculously useful feature of, say, RPM back in the 90s. It's tricky figuring out which package provides a missing binary library or manual page. And it sounds like Matthew Siemens said that, yeah, we either consciously didn't do that or something. Let me click this.
Isn't there package provides?
Oops, that didn't work. That's a very good question. Well, is that a chicken and egg issue? If you don't have the package, it can't report what's available in it, or something else? Clicky, clicky, clicky. We can do this. Here we go. So there is a provision of package repo. So that's a concern that came up, and I just want to make sure that's on everyone's collective radar.
One of the things that's been discussed today is, literally today, is what would happen if the end of every man page told you which package base it was in. So if you wanted to know which one fetch is in, you'd go man.freebsd.org fetch, and then down the bottom it would say FreeBSD-fetch, because that's the package for it. So it's a good question. I already have this problem with package as well. I think the main issue today is if we provide that, that would make a non-trivial increase in the size of our base.txt image. On the other hand, with package base, we wouldn't actually have to include that by default. So it might be one of those things that package base taketh away and package base bringeth. We get the best of both. Yeah.
And this is simultaneously new territory, and I wish we had this back with, I don't know, 5.0 or something. I wish I was a noisy, squeaky wheel back then saying, how about we package the base? That would be great because everyone else does it and there are benefits. So I will shut up. On the recent calls, we talked about service jails. That seems to be making progress. Jail metadata seems to be making progress. Igor's team is part of your team, I understand it, Dave. You and anything to report there?
And no, it landed, and hopefully everyone is using this, so we're all happy.
That's how it should be. I've put in the review for service jails and the advice on how to make an RC script service jail friendly. We do not have Jan, but I know he's been looking at different either escapes and other bugs. I've left some of the recent open bugs here. If anyone has some news, great. I did a refresh on each, and there didn't seem to be any updates, so I'm not going to go any further on those. I welcome you too. So Alexander and Craytonian, what's on your mind?
Well, I've been working on the build manual page.
As in release engineering build?
So, no, as in, like, you know how at the bottom of source updating is like really the only maintained instructions on how to build the system?
Right. Well, how's that coming, and do you need any feedback from here?
What?
How is that coming?
It's a lot of work, I imagine. Yeah.
Well, I've got it here.
I think we lost Alex.
Yeah, you're cutting out. I will blame Bluetooth, which drives me crazy.
Yeah, it's Bluetooth.
Hey, there he is.
So, yeah, I don't like how the instructions for building the system are like hidden in the bottom of updating, and I really think that they should be in build examples, because the build manual has the rest of most of the stuff that you need to know there, and I think it's like an obvious place, like how do I build the system from source and build. So I've been working on that today, and I did some work on updating because people complain on Discord they don't understand how to use ports modules. So that got in yesterday, but people wanted me to fix all this other stuff with it, and I'm like, man, this document is very challenging for me to work on. It's like I don't like, I'd rather just work on my end goal of transferring all the useful information in here to build, and then we can maintain it in one sensible place. So I've got it rendered there in the drafts area.
If I just click build 7, or what will it give me? Oh, people.
It
there
should just come up.
Look at PDF.
It's a
will come
PDF.
Up. Yep, beautiful. Great. Load, load, load. Okay.
So then if you go down to examples, I did a little bit of stuff like I couldn't stop myself. Everybody hates it when I do this. They want it to be all logical, different commits, but I couldn't stop myself from tweaking a few other things in there. You know, reviewers will probably ask me to remove those, but yeah.
Well, remember, you can reply what I'm drawing a blank on his name. He'd go by Wade Wilson. Glenn Barber would say, we don't want to churn the tree too much. So you could argue that, yes, it should be fewer, larger commits instead of little piddly churny ones. So there you go. So examples. Oh my, use Git as the example. Good. Okay. So question to both Dave and Alexander. Why is it that the OS cannot ship with, say, the Git metadata for the current, snapshot of the release, possibly as a new base package?
Just size.
Just size. Well, as a base package, as I'm saying. I mean, roughly how big is it, and how painful would that be in 2025?
The thing I've learned in Revenge land is that when you go, I'll just add this one thing.
Yeah.
What happens when you add that one thing by 3, in terms of things that can be downloaded, we have typically 3 releases currently. We have patch versions. We have multiple architectures. So I'll just add 800 megs. How much is my Git repo today? If I just go and have a look. I did a fetch today of just the Git main branch of FreeBSD, and it is 1.9 gigs.
Oh,
so I just suddenly said to the mirrors, I would need 1.9 gigs times a bunch of architectures, maybe times 3 versions, and all of a sudden I need another 200 gigs of space on.
Yep.
When you look at the target group of people who want to build from source, and you say remove the group of people who want to build from source but can't yet use Git, it's very, very small. Yeah.
So rephrasing,
there are other, you can publish. There's a command called git bundle, which sort of takes a Git tree and exports it in a usable way, and you could potentially publish those. But we already have those packages, not those packages. We already have these as tarballs, and all we're asking people is to go curl instead of package add or package install.
So
but this is great. There's lots of. I already learned 2 things from this, Alex. Great work. Thank you. I did not know about kern fast.
Thank you.
Fast. Cool.
For me, like, so all this stuff is written down somewhere, and some of it, sadly, is only written down in threads on the bug tracker. But all this stuff is currently written down somewhere. And for me, this is like, I'm trying to fix an information architecture bug. Like, there's all these places where people can look for this stuff, and none of them make sense, and none of them are maintained all the way. And it's like, I want to, like, that's the big idea I want to solve. The little idea I want to solve is like, you know, fixing the dock that's out of maintenance and like learning more from people. But the big idea I want to solve is simplifying the information architecture. Like, there's a lot of cases where we've got stuff in so many different places and none of it's maintained. And of course it's not maintained because all the eyes aren't on it. They're in all these different places.
Okay, so how is that permissively licensed Git checkout only lightweight utility coming along? Didn't we have like SVN Lite and base, which would just simply get you bootstrapped?
Yeah, so there's 2 things going on in this space. The first one is we've shipped with a tool called GitUp, which I personally haven't used. It's sort of supposed to be, I need to fix the sources, they need to be updated, but I don't know how to use Git, and I don't intend to maintain local patches. That's GitUp, and I'm sure if we go man GitUp, there will be stuff on it. The second discussion is, remember recently we had, the project, sort of our packages disappeared for a couple of weeks, our latest packages, and that was because of a confluence of a bunch of errors which aren't really germane to the subject here. But long story short, we were unable to build Git, so we couldn't build releases, so we couldn't build our snapshots.
Goodness.
And one of the problems is when you want to build Git, you build, even with the Git tiny package, we build 49 dependencies, curl, CMake, Python, Perl, and a bunch of other small things that aren't so heavy. But 49 dependencies of untrusted code that we pull in. And one of the options is to use something like GitUp or Got to do this, where the dependency tree is 3 packages, not 50. And 3 packages is something that you could reasonably put in our contrib section and in the source code. And that is something that you can reasonably expect a very security conscious person to review. If you think of this train of custody from, I want to build FreeBSD, so I'm going to build it from sources, and I'm going to check every other thing that needs it. That's a lot of work. But if I've just got to check 3 packages and they're shipped within FreeBSD, you have a pretty good feel for the changes that are going in to build your software. So it's about provenance and security. Normally, people like you and me, we're not going to worry about that because we'll just go git clone from ports and just keep building our new version. But when we're doing releases, we have an appropriately at least in my mind, an appropriately raised level of paranoia, and less is more.
Absolutely. Does Game of Trees attempt to
That
do a checkout without, regardless of having its own internal layout?
it produces the same layout. So
Oh, it does. Okay, so it is Git compatible, because I recall it not ever quite being.
So one of the
translated,
goals of Game of Trees, it's like third stanza on their web page, is
Okay.
complete binary compatibility with the Git pack format.
Great. Okay.
So you can download you can go, in fact, I've got it right here. What did I do? Got clone to fetch a repo, and then you check out your branch, and then you find there's something that you need in Git that Got doesn't have, and you can just switch to Git and do the same thing there. And if you do it often enough, you can ask the authors if they would consider adding it.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So is
Got
that
one
an
option? It's being discussed at the moment.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's a camp of developers I have some trust in. I'll leave it at that. Cool. Well, it sounds like 15 will be an exciting release. Package base alone is fantastic, but all the things. Anything else, gang?
Today I committed building a font for the bootloader, which provides 80 by 25 console on 2K laptops.
Ooh.
I'm pretty happy about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I doubt if we want to discuss Discord spiciness on the recorded call, but I'm happy to stick around a minute and discuss. I haven't had a moment to investigate anything I have or have not heard on that topic. Otherwise, we're at 1800 UTC. Shall we call it good?
Like and subscribe for more.
Nicely done. Didn't even need a prompt. Okay, well, take care, everyone. Catch you perhaps tomorrow on the ZFS call.